Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Bethanne. Today I want to talk about this book, The Deep, sorry for the glare, The Deep by Rivers Solomon, which is based on a song by the group Clipping, and so the artists from Clipping are listed here as well. This book essentially takes the song and turns it into a novella. Before I dive into what this book is about, I just have to say it's fantastic. This was a 5-star book for me. I read it in one sitting. I have a toddler, so the ability to read a book in one sitting, even a short novella, is pretty unheard of, but I just couldn't put this down. And so I think I read until like 1 or 2 in the morning to finish this book. I thought it was just incredible. The I would say the writing is perhaps not the most polished, but like not in a way that bothered me. And so I do rate books purely based on kind of my enjoyment of them and how much they sucked me in. And, did I have like negative emotional reactions to anything that was happening, like characters that drove me crazy or something? Those sorts of things can reduce a rating for me. But I generally don't rate things based kind of on technical considerations. So the writing was quite good. That's not to say that there were like real problems with the writing. I just think if you're the sort of person where text needs to be polished, perfect, literary, this book may not be the right one for you, but I thought it was incredible. So the basic premise of this story is kind of a reimagining of what would have happened to pregnant women who were thrown off of slave ships coming from Africa to the Americas. And it's taking this like tragic, awful part of history and turning it into myth. So in this book, women who were thrown off of the slave ships, either in labor or pregnant, the babies were born in the ocean. And so there's kind of a sense of the ocean not as like a living being. It's not a character, but the ocean itself kind of has a magical nurturing aspect to it, because these babies are transformed kind of by the ocean and are transformed into kind of mermaid-like creatures. I say mermaid-like because I feel like our pop culture conception of mermaids is a little bit driven by The Little Mermaid and things like that. These are not your Disney versions of mermaids. They're hunters and predators, just like humans everywhere. They're the top predators in the ocean ecosystem. They can kill sharks and things like that. Except maybe when sharks are in a pack, actually, which is kind of mentioned in the book. But anyway, so the babies are born, and they're born as these mythical creatures. And then they build a whole culture and a whole civilization under the sea. And one of the pieces of this, there's a really big theme is about kind of dealing with trauma, and how trauma well, it really is a cultural experience when there are similar types of trauma perpetrated against an entire group of people. So it's about that cultural and group experience of trauma and how that is handed down, and how people can choose to ignore it and not deal with it, and maybe how people need to come together to deal with that collective trauma in order to move through it and heal. So in this culture, most people at the point of this story, which is, I think, in the modern day, so it's been about 600 years or so since the first Wajinru, I might not be saying that as it's intended, but since the first Wajinru were kind of created in the ocean. And most of the Wajinru have lost their ability to remember. They are people who live kind of very much in the present, kind of like a seize the day mentality almost. And they have one person in their society, kind of their main figure, who's called the historian. And that person is a little bit of a magical kind of vessel for all of the memories of the entire culture. And so all of these memories are kind of passed down in the person of the historian, and the historian lives those past memories, so she can, in her own head, relive the memories of the very first Wajinru, those babies that were born from African slaves who were tossed overboard. And so that's an incredible weight to bear. So it's basically, there's one person in the culture who bears the entire weight of that collective trauma and collective history. And that historian in kind of the modern day of the story is our protagonist. And so the whole book is just a detailed look at her ability to cope or not cope with that weight at various times and how she handles it. There's a little bit of romance that has some great queer representation, and the author, River Solomon, is queer as well, so that's a really nice touch. It's an Own Voices story in that respect. Yeah, it's so beautiful. I wish it had been longer in a way. I mean, I think the novella, it definitely accomplished what it set out to do, but like with a good book, I'm torn, because it's like, oh my gosh, like I felt complete after I read it, because it was just like, message received, right? Like I think the book was successful, but I also loved it so much that I wanted to know more what happens to this culture, because the book ends with a big cultural shift. The historian, who's the center of the story, has decided that things can't stay the same. The weight of this collective trauma is kind of too much for one person to bear, and it's not good for their people, that the Wajinru as a whole are kind of suffering and not living up to their full potential by being limited in this way of most individuals not being able to experience that history and those memories. I should say that once a year, so the historian's big ceremonial role is once a year, the whole culture does come together and the historian shares memories with the people. And so they are kind of tapped into that like cultural lineage coming down through the centuries, but then they have the really, in some ways, luxury of then being able to forget the details of all those memories after that annual event, and the historian has to remember for everybody. So they're not totally disconnected from their history or anything, but like I mentioned, they're not bearing the emotional weight of it from day to day. So anyway, I thought this was incredible. I think everybody should read it. It's, especially if you love fantasy, it's a way of taking, really tough, really difficult concepts from today about like we live in a society that is just horribly marked by trauma, especially for so many groups of people, especially for Black Americans. And this book just like puts it in a stunningly visual way that I think is like a nice accompaniment to the kind of more academic and more news-related conversations that a lot of people are now having about kind of those issues and how they affect American society. So yeah, everybody should read this. Okay, so I think with that, I will wrap this up. I'd love to talk about this book more. So if anybody has read it, I would love to know what you think. Leave a comment. I should have said I heard about this from the channel Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. Nell and Scott did both. I think both of you read it, or at least Nell did. And they said it was amazing, and so I picked it up, and I'm really glad I did. So go check out their channel as well. I will link to the video where they mention this book below, assuming I can find it. Otherwise, it'll just be a general link to their channel. Yeah, so if anybody's read it, I would love to know what you thought. And I hope anybody who hasn't read it and sees this video will go get it, because it's incredible. All right. If you like what I'm doing and want to see more of my videos, please check out my channel and hit the subscribe button below. And I will see you all in the next video. Thanks. Bye.